This video is powered by, as always, entertainment. If you enjoyed this content, consider becoming a patron over on patreon.com/asalways for access to the Patreon exclusive podcast, The Kill Connor Clubhouse, early access to the Cinema Room podcast, being part of polls for future videos, and other early access material. With that said, please enjoy the video. Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the Jazz Lounge. I was going to call it the Jazz Lounge podcast. It's not. I can understand why you might think that. It's nearly a podcast, but it's not. Anyway, so welcome back. This is the series where we sit down in a 1920s jazz lounge with the rain pattering on the windows, and we talk about video games for a little while. You know, we just sit down, unedited, talk about some video games. So I thought we'd today go over this whole issue with Epic Games. So they've launched a new store that's competing with Steam. There's a lot of timed exclusivity with games launching on the Epic Games store on PC. And I thought, why not go over that, talk about it, and see what are the pros and cons, what's the issues, why is everyone so up in arms about this, and discuss it. So I think it's a pretty good topic to go over. So before we get started, obviously I want to thank our Patreon producers, King Richard III, Josh Devillier, Seth, and Ikraik. Thank you so much for your continued support over on patreon.com/asalways. And if you want to join them and become a Patreon producer, that's the highest tier, is to be a Patreon producer. So you're mentioned at the beginning of every single one of myself and Tyler's videos, as well as a bunch of other perks. But if you just want to become an As Always member and get access to the exclusive content over there, or the great video to promote it on, a video about exclusivity, but you know what I mean. So if you want to, the links in the description. They're patreon.com/asalways. There's plenty of stuff. We do the Kill Connor Clubhouse podcast every week. The Kill Connor Club isn't on, and early access to the Cinema Room and other stuff as well. Clubhouses, I would pledge for Clubhouse Alliance. It's just $1. You get access to our entire library, which is 60 podcasts plus Cinema Rooms. Like it's mental amount of stuff. But I would pledge honestly just for Clubhouse because it is so fucking funny. It is a laugh every other Sunday when the Kill Connor Club isn't on. Me and Tyler just sit down, go through, you know, it's all Patreon topics. We have an advice thread where people tell us stories about their lives, you know, issues they're having with relationships and stuff they've done while they're out with their friends and like they need advice on things, and me and Tyler just go through it, have an absolute fucking laugh. It's brilliant. If you're into that kind of thing, it's really great, whether, you know, you're in class listening to it, whether you're sitting down and playing some video games, whatever it might be. I'd highly recommend that. But anyways, enough about that. Enough about my other endeavors, my podcasts. Let's get on and talk about Epic Games and their exclusivity and what's going on there. So to start off, let's talk about the idea of exclusivity. So I think there's two sides to this. I think there's one side that's obviously logical, makes sense, and that I think is the right response to have to any form of exclusivity, whether it be, you know, PlayStation exclusive things like Uncharted and The Last of Us, Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man. You've got Xbox that have things like Halo, Forza, they had Fable, Gears of War. And then you've obviously got Nintendo that has Mario, Zelda, I don't know, fucking Metroid, Donkey Kong. I don't know. It's been a while since I've played like Nintendo. I guess, you know, Animal Crossing and stuff like that. But yeah. So the consoles have their own exclusive games that launch on their consoles, and that then promotes that platform. And the way that works is that the company. So for instance, with PlayStation, Sony will go out and be like, right, okay, so let's find a company. So say with Spider-Man, they were like, right, let's get Insomniac. We're going to task you. We want to hire your company. Please make a game for PlayStation 4, Spider-Man. That's what we want. That's what we want to see happen. And then they make it. It's made with the idea in mind. This is for the PlayStation 4. Sony wants this game. Let's make it and get it out there. And that's essentially what they do, and that's the way that it works. Whether that is with a third-party developer they task with it, or whether it's with a first-party studio that they own, like Sony Santa Monica or Guerrilla. And that's sort of the way that those exclusives work, and they're made so that those companies like Sony can then promote the PlayStation 4 through particular games, and Xbox can do the same, and so can Nintendo. And so I think those exclusives are very good. I think companies making exclusive games for their platform is a positive thing. I think it breeds incredible competition between all games companies, but also between the major heads of the industry, with Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, because they've got to compete with each other. They can't just release the third-party games. It's like, why should I get an Xbox over a PlayStation? Why should I get a PlayStation over an Xbox? Sure, there's the hardware, but most mainstream games audiences, people that play video games, aren't looking at that. They're not looking at how many teraflops the Xbox One X has. They're looking at, what games does this thing have? The PlayStation has Uncharted, it's got Spider-Man, it's got The Last of Us, it's got Horizon Zero Dawn that I heard about, and that apparently is really good, They've got Detroit Become Human. There's all these games, it's got God of War, and there's all these games that they've heard about, and they're like, everyone says these games are so great, why would I get an Xbox? And so, obviously, for me, if it was just third-party games, I would only have the Xbox One X, because it's the most powerful console, and that's where I play all my third-party games. But were that not the case, were it all about, if I could only have one console, which would I have? It would be the PlayStation 4, because it has a better games library, because I can play all my third-party games, but I can also play their amazing catalogue of first-party games that are only available on the PlayStation 4, that the Xbox One doesn't have. And the issue, I think, this is getting a bit off topic, but the issue with, the competition between the Xbox and the PlayStation in 2018, 2019 is that the Xbox doesn't have exclusives that can go up against what PlayStation has. And, Halo 5 wasn't really good enough, although the multiplayer is brilliant. The campaign simply wasn't good enough. It's not a good enough game to compete. Forza, those games are really good, but they're not up there with, they're not these special products that can compete. And so that's really what they need, and I think that competition's good. I think exclusivity is good because it means that those companies are making games for their platforms. When you've got Valve made games, they own Steam. They made games like Half-Life, Portal, and although they're available and published on other platforms as well, it works in a similar fashion. So that's essentially, with the good side of exclusives. Now, there's an issue with some forms of exclusivity, where it comes to timed exclusivity, whether it be for downloadable content or whether it be for entire games. If you look back at Call of Duty, they'd had a lot of partnerships with, I believe it was Sony. I don't keep up with Call of Duty a whole lot, but their DLCs came out like a month later on Xbox, and they came out first on PlayStation 4 because they had the partnership with Sony, and so Xbox players unfortunately lost out. And I think that's where you're sort of on the edge there. That's where I'm on the fence, because when you hear that from the get-go, right, there's this game coming out, Spider-Man, it's a PlayStation exclusive, you're like, okay, PlayStation are making it, Sony are making it, it's their game, so of course it's coming out on the PlayStation. That makes sense. It'd be like, I'd be very shocked if Mario came out on the Xbox. It's like, nope, that's Nintendo's game, of course it's coming out on the Switch. But when you get something like a Call of Duty that is completely third party, and then they just, for money, go, yeah, you know what, you can have the DLC a month early, whether that be with something like a Red Dead Redemption, where I'm pretty sure there was time and exclusivity there, I think that's where there starts to be a little bit of an issue. Obviously not for the companies, because nothing affects them, but for the consumer, I think that's where I think that I'm not a huge fan of it. And I think it goes further when you have things like Rise of the Tomb Raider a couple of years back that released on the Xbox a whole year before it released on the PlayStation 4. And because that game and the original game wasn't a timed exclusive. Rise of the Tomb Raider, however, was. So anyone that was invested in that franchise, that owned a PlayStation, it's almost like the developers turned their back on them and said, no, fuck you, we want the money, so we're going to release it on the Xbox a whole year early. And I get it from the perspective of a game development company, whether it be an indie company that needs the money because they're not going to get a huge amount of sales. They've got to pay for their next game. They've got to cover their back. They've got to make a profit on this, otherwise it wasn't worth their time. They've got to pay all of their employees and stuff, even if it is a small team. And then you've got the big companies that, of course, have shareholders, and they're demanding that the income and profits rise every single year. So I get it from that standpoint, but from a consumer standpoint, it looks a little bit scummy when you see things like that. And so I think that's the issue that people are finding with Epic Games Store. So what is Epic Games Store? It's essentially it's a new client, right, on PC. The main one we all know is Steam. The main one that everyone uses is Steam. Steam is a brilliant service as a consumer. And so, there's obviously these other ones. You've got Origin from EA, which is, okay, it's for EA games, basically. And the same with Uplay for Ubisoft. It's essentially for Ubisoft games. That's what all these things are for. And so, you don't get the same issue. It's annoying when you want to play Assassin's Creed or Far Cry, or you want to play, I don't know, Mass Effect or The Sims, and you have to load up a launcher. You can't just do it through Steam. You got to load up a separate launcher to play these games now. And I think that originally, that's an issue people have with Epic Games. They're like, oh, okay, great. So to play this game now, I'm gonna have to boot up another launcher. I'm gonna have to download another client so that I can play this other game. And I think it's getting oversaturated, and I think it's irritating for some people, and that's fair enough. But this goes further then, because it's not just that. It's not just Epic Games. It's not just like, oh, to play Fortnite, I've got to download the Epic launcher. It's now an entire competitor to Steam. It's now its own thing entirely. It's going to be putting up third-party games. These developers are going to be going with Epic Store potentially instead of Steam, or as well as Steam, so that they can have their games there. Now, there's multiple reasons why this is happening and why games are being affected in such a way. So 3 of the ones that I think are the most talked about that we know of is Metro Exodus, Outer Worlds, which is yet to be released, and most recently Borderlands 3, which is yet to be released. All of which are Epic Games timed exclusives, which means that anyone that was into the Borderlands franchise, anyone that supported Obsidian through Fallout New Vegas and everything, and anyone that loves the Metro franchise cannot play the games through Steam. They've now got to play them through Epic Games, which is, it's not, obviously it's not the same as a game being a timed exclusive on PlayStation when you own an Xbox, or vice versa, because you don't have to go out of your way to buy an entirely new piece of hardware just to play a game that you love. On PC, of course, you just download the other client, you download the other launcher, and you play on the other launcher. The only issue is, when you're separating things and then you've got everything in a different place, it gets very irritating, especially when the way that Steam works is so very reliable. You've got your account there, you've got all your achievements there, things like that. It gets annoying when you have to get a separate thing just to play a game, and it then won't, or you could wait and you have it on Steam, but you wait an extra year or so. And I think that's really the issue, is that, these games are coming out a whole year earlier, or they're coming out a whole year later on Steam, a whole year earlier on Epic Games Store. And for the consumer, that's like, I've played, maybe I played Borderlands 1 and 2 on Steam, and now I've got to download Epic Games launcher, they've got to download their client, their store, to be able to play Borderlands 3, so I can't, have it on my Steam profile. It's got to be a separate profile now. I've got to set up a new account. I've got to attach my card details to it. Like, I've got my card details on Origin, on Uplay, on Steam, and now on the Epic Games Store. So all of my games on PC are spread across multiple platforms, and it almost feels like a betrayal from the game developers. Now, I get completely why this is the case and why they're doing what they're doing when it comes to the exclusivity. I think there's 2 main reasons, right? I think there's 2 main reasons. The reason number 1, which maybe is a little bit less, is a lot of game developers nowadays develop using Unreal Engine, and it's easily the best engine out there these days. It's so versatile, it's so unique, and it really does make brilliant games. So many games use it these days. You could just Google what games use Unreal Engine. I think you'll be surprised the amount of games these days that really do use the Unreal Engine. But when you use the Unreal Engine, of course, that cuts into your costs, and it's gonna, what you're gonna have to pay for is a license to use that software, to use that game engine. But if you publish your game on Epic Games Store, you get a free license for Unreal Engine. And so I think for a lot of developers, they look at that and think, oh, we can make more money doing this. We just publish our game on Epic Store. We get a free license to the game engine we want to use. We develop our game, we put it on their store. We're making more of a profit than we would do if we went with Steam and then bought the license for Unreal Engine. And on top of that, this is the second reason, the revenue split between the Unreal Engine, between Epic Games Store and Steam is drastic. So the revenue split between Steam. So when you publish your game on Steam, obviously there's a revenue split between you and Valve, and because obviously you're using their service to host your game and for people to buy your game on their service. And so the split has been 70-30, where the developers get 70% and Valve gets 30% of the profits made from the game sold on Steam. Whereas with Epic Games, it's 88-12, so the game developers get 88% and the Epic gets 12% of the game sales made on the Epic Store. Now that's a huge amount, because that's a whole 18% more. That's a lot of money when you're making as much as you're making. Imagine that's, you could do the math. Imagine it's like you make $1 million, for example, off of your brand new game that's been launched. Normally you would make more, but imagine you make $1 million. Imagine if you split that 70-30 between, if you split that 88-12. It's a no-brainer to me that if I were making games, I would put it on the Epic Store, because it's really, at the end of the day, when you look at it from a developer standpoint, you're making more money. You're also getting the Unreal Engine for free, and on top of that, the consumers, although it might be irritating, they don't have to fork out any more money to move to the Epic Games Store. It might be a slight inconvenience, which I completely sympathize with and I completely understand. I get that side of it, but from the developers' side of it, they're not really doing anything negative to their consumers other than saying, yeah, you're going to have to use a different client. That's about it. Other than that, you're not asking you for any more money. You're not going to have to buy another console. You're not going to have to buy another PC. Like, you just got to download another client. And but then from the gamer standpoint, from the consumer standpoint, I get it, because you've been loyal to this company, you're invested in this game, you play on Steam, and now it's like you play on Steam. That sounded weird. You play your games on Steam, and now they're saying, oh well, nope, sorry, you can't play our game there. Even though you've historically been able to, we're now putting on a completely different launcher where you have to make a new account, put in your details, sign up, set all your stuff there, whether you've got to add friends and stuff, it's a separate platform, and you just don't want that. You want it all in one place. You don't want this nonsense of, Epic Games exclusivity. You want to be able to play your game on Steam on release. You don't want to have to sit around and be like, oh, okay, well then I'll have to download another launcher to play this new game that I really want to play. And so I completely understand why there's an issue. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, let's look at this. Is this good or is this bad? I don't think it's necessarily either. I think in a way it can breed competition, but not in the same way that exclusives on Xbox and PlayStation do. Because we're talking exclusives from third-party developers on PC across 2 different services that are free services to use as a consumer. And so, is it good or bad? I don't really think it's either. I think you can spin it either way. I think you can spin that it's good because it breeds competition. Epic Games are going to try and make a better service. Steam are, in response, going to try and make their service better. Maybe Valve will start making games again. Maybe they'll produce another Half-Life, a Portal. Maybe they'll make some new IPs. Who knows? Maybe they won't. They probably won't. But, there's that potential there because they now have this competition. They're not so complacent. Maybe they will lower their prices. Maybe they'll, start giving out free games. Because I know Epic Games Store are going to be giving out a free game or something every month throughout the entirety of 2019, as long as you use their store. Maybe Steam will do something like that to compete. I think that you can look at it that way and say this is probably a good thing in the long run. But it's also a bad thing because as a consumer, you're sitting there with all of your games spread out across multiple platforms with a bunch of different clients and launchers. And whenever you want to play something, you're booting up a different thing. Oh, I want to play Mass Effect, I've got to boot up Origin. I want to play Assassin's Creed, I've got to boot up Uplay. I want to play something else, I've got to boot up Steam. I want to play, Fortnite, I've got to boot up the Epic launcher. It's like, there's just too many things here, and it's getting a bit fucking ridiculous. So I get both sides of the argument, but I don't think inherently it's negative or positive. I think that it could go either way. I think we're going to wait and see what happens. But of course, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see exactly what the Epic Games, store is like, how it works, because, Uplay sucks and Origin fucking sucks. Steam is a brilliant service, and who knows exactly what the Epic launcher or Epic store is going to be like, in a year from now or 2 years from now. Could it be, the next big thing? I don't know, but I would love to see Steam respond to this and do something to try and try and equal the balance. Try and you know, go back at Epic. Why not? Let's see that happen. You know, I'm not a PC gamer. I don't. Wow, I just said that. Ironically, I'm not though. I don't play on PC very often. I play mostly on consoles, mostly because I find it easier. Because it's just sort of easy. Sometimes I have a lot of problems on PC with things, and I just find it easier to, you know, put on the Xbox. It's specifically made for video games. It's so easy to just put on and play. The same with like the PlayStation. Whereas with PC, sometimes it's like, oh, this game is just crashing for no reason. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe it's something I downloaded 3.5 weeks ago, and I have no idea what is causing this problem. And that's just some of the issues you get on PC. Not very often, but sometimes you can. There's some games, obviously, I love playing on PC. Like, I bought The Witcher 3 on PC, and I think that was, you know, I absolutely loved it. You know, incredible game. I still need to go back to it. There's so many side quests I still haven't done. It's been years since I've touched it. But I still absolutely adore it. And obviously things like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, I think, need to be played on PC. Those for me are just PC games. I don't think I could touch those on a console. That'd be so weird. Playing Skyrim on a console, that's fucking weird to me. But you know, but for the majority of times, I play on Xbox and PlayStation. So, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to know your thoughts on is this something that is really, really upsetting you? Or is this just a slight inconvenience? Or are you kind of happy to see a competitor, to see how this works out? Because I completely get all of the aspects and all of the viewpoints of this, but I don't really hold one myself. I was just sort of analysing it, because obviously this doesn't really affect me personally, because were I to play Borderlands 3, I would get it on my Xbox. Were I to play Outer Worlds, which I will, I'll get it on Xbox. And Metro Exodus, I've already got it on Xbox. So that's just the thing. It doesn't really affect me, but I get all of the different aspects of it. And were I playing on PC, yeah, no, I agree, it would annoy me. I would be like, why is this happening? I just want to play on Steam where all of my games are. Why have I got to get this other launcher and then boot it up and then go through and play specific games on Epic? Like, that is irritating. I get it, yes. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I think that's it for this video. I'm not really too sure what else to say. I think we've pretty much gone over everything. But it's been a nice chat. It's been good. Thank you for coming and stopping by in the old Jazz Lounge. I really appreciate it. Another episode will come out eventually. Let me know any future episodes you'd like. What topics could I talk about on the Jazz Lounge? Something I can go pretty in-depth with. Let me know in the comments. I take them all and I write them down in a notepad file so that I have all of the Jazz Lounge topics you guys would like me to eventually cover. The same with Wishlist. I do that as well, and we'll do another Wishlist probably next week. And I've got a quick fire coming soon, a quick fire topics, which I put out a tweet of today, because I think this video should go out the same day I put out the tweet. Definitely will. So if you haven't already checked that out and gone and left a topic for quick fire topics, go ahead and do that. I'd really, really appreciate it. As well as I should be streaming Mafia 2 today properly with Elva. Fingers crossed that the internet doesn't have a fucking breakdown again. We'll see what happens. But that's it for this video. That's it for this episode of the Jazz Lounge. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already. This is a really unique series that nobody else has done, I don't think. I hope not anyways, because it's my invention. But yeah, that's it for this video. I'll see you all next time, boys, in the Jazz Lounge. Catch you later, gamers.